let's learn how to perform a squat, which is a bend and lift movement. We will now set up for Adriana for a squat movement. So what I would like you to do is to stand at shoulder width apart. Now when we say shoulder width apart, what we are referring to is the heel has got to be in line with the shoulders. So maybe Adriana, can you just face to the back for a while? Okay. So if you're standing at shoulder width apart position, the shoulders will be in line with the heel. Okay. So let's face to the front again. Let's ensure that you are standing at shoulder width apart. Your feet could be straight point forward, or if you want to be a little bit more stable, then you want to point your toes slightly out, no more than 15 degrees. Right? Now, the next joint that we'll look into is to keep your knees stable, right? With a slight flexion, slight bend. Okay, chest up. Okay, chest up. Okay, keep your core engaged. Alright, we're good, right, to go into a squat position. So let's face to your left now. So yeah, let's face to the left now. Now once you get the setup position right, I'd like to move a little bit in. Yeah. Once you get into the setup position, the next step is to perform a hip hinge. Right? A hip hinge. So a hip hinge is where you keep your knee stable, lumbar spine stable. The movement should come from the hip joint. So Adriana is going to show a hip hinge, okay, and back to the original position. So now when we're doing hip hinge, we want to control the movement from the trunk, which means we do not want too much movement of the trunk. We do not want initiation from the knee. That's what we're trying to avoid, because that will hurt your knee. Okay, let's do it again. Let's do the correct movement. Hip hinge, right? Most of the movement should come from the hip. Okay, that's very nice. One more rep. Good. Now, once you achieve this hip hinge position, can you stay at the position once you get a hip hinge position? Now, once you get into this position, what you would want to do is to do a vertical descent, which means the hip and the knee will have to flex at the same time. Let's take a look at that. Flex at the same time. Okay? Right? And you will go as low as you can maintain stability of the lumbar spine. Okay? Keeping your trunk upright. And if you look at this position here, what we could also witness is that the shin is parallel with the torso. That's a very nice position to be at. Okay? Which I would say the lowest position you want to go on a squat, and then from this position you would want to squat back up, driving your hips as well as your quads up. Right? Let's do it one more time. The hip hinge, vertical descent, hip and knee drop at the same time, keeping your trunk, spine neutral, okay, lumbar stable. From here you're going to drive up. Okay. Now what I'd like you to do is to face forward now. Let's do a squat again. Now this time we're going to look at the alignment of the knee with the toes. Okay? Hip hinge, drop down. So you can see that Adriana is trying to keep the knees stable without collapsing. Can you show us the collapse now? We want to avoid this. So you want to keep the knee stable. If I were to draw a line in the middle of the knee, it should go towards the second or the third toe. Alright? And you want to push it back up. Okay? Alright, let's do one more rep. And back up. Now you will see that when you're learning to do a bodyweight squat, you will see that naturally the client or Adriana herself will put your hands in front. That mimics more like a front squat or a goblet squat, and that's definitely more stable. You would want to encourage your client to start off with that movement or that exercise before proceeding to a back squat. Once your client practices the bodyweight squat or the front squat, and you think they already have good control, you may want to introduce a back squat. Now Adriana is going to show it to us how to do a back squat. I would say there is not much different in terms of the technique. It's just that the back squat, the barbell placement is behind the client. Therefore, it kind of adds instability to the movement. So it's a little bit difficult for the client to maintain an upright position. However, technique should not be compromised. Let's have a look. Same here, hip hinge. Hip and knee will drop down at the same time. At the bottom position, still keeping the lumbar spine stable. You're going to drive your hips and knee up. Okay, you're going to do it for 3 repetitions. Okay, you want to keep the chin slightly lower. Okay. That's much better. Okay. Right. Thank you. So let's now learn one of the hardest exercise in one of the movements that is in the bend and lift movements. So which is the deadlift. So Adriana is going to demonstrate to us a deadlift here. She's going to get down to the bottom position by grabbing the bar. Okay. Right. So she's going to hold, or she's going to use an alternate grip, because that will strengthen the grip when the weight gets heavier. Now in the bottom position, what I'd like us to look at is the differences between this and a squat. Okay? The hips is now higher than the knee position, which allows a greater movement of the hip as compared to the knee. So at this position, at this exercise, the knee is going to move less. That is why a deadlift is often used to train the glutes as compared to the quads. Right, so this is a nice starting position. Hip is slightly higher than the knee. If you see from this view, you will see that the shoulders will be in line with the elbows, knees, and the midfoot. Okay, so this will be all in one line there. Now, let's also have a look at Adriana's spine. She's maintaining a very strong and neutral spine there. Keeping the lats muscle activated, because that's a great stability muscle. And what we will not also forget is the position of the chin, because if the chin is too higher, she's going to hyperextend her neck. So she's got to ensure the client tuck the chin down, not too much, just a little bit lower, so to have a slight curve on the cervical spine, slightly lower. Okay, that's good. So once we get into this position, okay, the drive will be, remember the drive will be very much from the hip. Yeah? Okay, so she's going to drive up, the hip and the shoulders will move up at the same rate. Let's look at how she's doing it. Perfect. Okay, let's do it one more rep, a little bit slower so we could see that the hip and the shoulders is moving at the same rate. Okay? The glutes is doing all the work, okay? Your client should be feeling a lot on the glutes as well as the hamstring. It should feel very minimal on the quads, very minimal on the erector spinae. So one more rep. Okay, I know she likes this exercise, she's going to go 2 more reps, okay? Go, let's do one more. One. Okay, let's take a look again. Hips and shoulders move at the same rate, and one last rep. Keeping the spine neutral again, chin down, yep. Okay, that's how you would want to perform a deadlift exercise.